For following steps, please prepare extruder body, adapter printer, and FS lever. You also need M3X80 screw, M3X10 screw, M3NS nuts, M3N nuts, steel ball, and the short and longer magnet. Take two M3NS nuts and insert them in the extruder body. Make sure both are all the way in. Push them in, the upper nut must disappear inside the printed part. Secure the nut using M3X10 screw. Tighten the screw just lightly. Later on, we will need to add the binder sensor. Take two M3N nuts and insert them in. Take the smaller magnet and insert it carefully in the FS lever. Majority of the magnet will be hidden inside the printed part. Insert the FS lever in the body. Secure the part with M3X80 screw. Tighten it, but ensure that the lever can move freely. Insert the bigger magnet in the extruder body. It will stick out. Correct setup, magnets are repelling each other. Thus, the lever is pushed to the right. Take the printed part, adapter printer, and insert the steel ball in. Roll the ball to every direction to ensure smooth movement. Place the printed part together with the steel ball in the extruder body. The surface of both parts should be almost aligned. For following steps, please prepare extruder motor plate, M3X10 screws. Take the extruder motor plate and secure it with two M3X10 screws. Use the cable as guide to properly orient the part. Rotate the shaft as in the picture. Flat part must be faced in the direction of the arrow. There is a channel for the filament inside the printed part. Align approximately the teeth on the gear with it. Don't tighten the screws just yet. We will align it properly first. See the next step. Take a piece of 1.75 filament. You can use the bundled one on the spool. Don't use the black nylon. which is too thick. Straighten the filament as much as possible. Straighten the filament along the path and align the gear properly. The filament will be always slightly bent. Use it anyway for the initial alignment. For final check, replace the filament with an Allen key. Bear in mind, the key has slightly different size than the filament. Tighten the screw slightly to temporarily fix it. We will make the final check and tighten later on. For this step, please prepare extruder cover and M3NS nut. Slide the nut all the way in. Leave the hole in the arm empty for now. We will use it later while assembling the print fan. For the following steps, please prepare hot end for MK3S, M3X40 screws, M3 extend screw. Take two M3 extend screws and insert them in the holes. Doing this now makes the assembly slightly easier, but both holes are shallow and the screws might fall out. If this happens, you can continue without them and put them back later on. Place the hotend next to the extruder body. See the grooves in the printed part, which are in the shape of the hotend. Correctly place hotend. Cables should point in the direction behind the hand. We will align them in the next step. Place the extruder body with the hot end on the box and make sure the cables are pointing down. Place your finger temporarily on the longer magnet and place the extruder motor assembly on the extruder body. The bond gear might pull the magnet out while assembling parts together. Make sure both parts are aligned. Place the extruder cover on the extruder body. Again, make sure that all three parts are properly aligned. Insert two M3X40 screws you have prepared earlier. Tighten them, but be careful, they are slightly longer than the thickness of the entire assembly. For the following steps, please prepare x-carriage, M3N nut, M3NS nuts, IR sensor cable. Take both M3N nuts and using pliers push them in the x-carriage. Then using a screw from the other side, pull them all the way in. Don't forget to remove the screw. Take all four M3NS nuts and insert them in. Ensure the correct alignment using the Allen key. Take the IR sensor cable and locate the end with the small connector. Place cable in the x-carriage. Use the small printed overhangs to keep the cable inside. The distance between the connector and the x-carriage should be around 50 mm. We will adjust it later. Guide the cable through the slot. Remember this path. We will use it for other cables as well. Start by making a small loop just below the extruder motor. Leave a slack about 2 to 3 centimeters. This comes handy for easier disassembly in the future. Then guide the cable in the channel all the way to the back. Slightly bend the cable down to form it around the edge. Grab the x-carriage and place it onto the back of the extruder assembly as shown in the picture. Make sure the motor cable follows the channel both in the extruder body and the x-carriage. In the x-carriage, the motor cable will follow the path of the IR sensor cable. Ensure no wire is pinched. Then use M3X10 screws and Allen key with its ball end to connect both parts together. If you are inserting the screws at this moment, it will be slightly inclined in the beginning, but it will straighten up after a few turns. Don't tighten the screws completely, we need to adjust the IR sensor cable. Turn the extruder to the other side and if needed, insert the second M3X10 screw. Don't tighten the screw, we need to adjust the IR sensor cable. For following steps, please prepare Prusa IR sensor, M2X8 screw, M3X40 screw. Place the IR sensor on the top of the extruder body and secure it with the M2X8 screw. The sensor shouldn't be able to move, but be careful, the PCB isn't instructable. Connect the cable, mind the correct orientation of the connector and wires. Leave a slack behind the sensor like in the picture. Don't create too big loop as it might interfere with the frame. If needed, adjust the length by gently pulling or pushing the cable. Check once more, no cable is pinched, and tighten both M3X10 screws installed previously. Finish the sensor assembly by inserting an M3X40 screw. Make sure all the caps are gone. For the following steps, please prepare hot end fan, M3X40 screws. For easier fan installation, remove temporarily the black twist tie from the cable bundle and release at least one loop. Then tie the bundle back, see the picture. Before you move to the next step, take an Allen key and gently push the motor cable to the channel to create space for a fan cable. Place the fan on the extruder and proceed in the following way. Start by placing the fan cable in the upper channel. Slide the fan close to the x-carriage and gently push the cable in using an Allen key. Before you push the fan all the way to the left, place the cable in the x-carriage channel. Use the 3 M3X40 screws to fix the fan in place. Don't over-tighten them, you can break the fan's plastic casing. Also make sure that the fan can rotate freely. Leave the last hole empty for now. For following steps, please prepare extruder idler, Pontek without the hole for the set screw, bearings, shaft, M3N nut, M3X40 screw, idler spring. Insert both bearings into the pulley. Be aware that the bearings can slip out during assembly. Take M3N nut and place it in the extruder idler. Insert the pulley in idler as shown in the picture. Slide the shaft through the idler and the pulley. Use reasonable force or you will break the printed part. Shaft should be flush with the surface of the printed part. Place your finger on the bearing and ensure it can rotate freely. Push the filament from the top through the contact into the PTFE tube. Check the alignment and if needed, adjust the position. Tighten the screw, but be careful, you can easily strip it. Remove the filament. Place the extruder idler in place and secure it using M340 screw. Don't tighten the screw too firmly, it serves as shaft for the idler. Check that the idler can rotate freely. Use the M3X40 screw with the spring to introduce tension to the extruder idler. Hold the extruder idler on the other side until the screw reaches the nut. Since there is only one screw, you need to introduce a large force. The head of the screw should be aligned or slightly below the surface. For the following steps, please prepare FS cover, M3 extend screw. Place the FS cover on the extruder and align it according to the picture. Tapered sides of the cover must be oriented towards you. Insert the screw and tighten it. For the following steps, please prepare print fan support, M3 extend screw, M3N nut. Take the M3N nut and insert it all the way to the support. Place the support on the extruder and ensure the inclined part is facing down. Secure the support using M3 extend screw. For the following steps, please prepare fan shroud, M3X20 screw, M3NS nut. Insert M3NS nut into the fan shroud all the way in. Mount the fan shroud to the extruder. Secure it using M3X20 screw. Don't over tighten the screw, you can break the plastic casing. Also make sure that the fan can rotate freely. For the following steps, please prepare: print fan, M3X20 screw, M3N nut. First, slide the fan in the fan shroud and make sure it aligns properly. Second, fix the fan in place using one M3X20 screw. Tighten carefully or you will damage the fan's casing. Turn the extruder around and insert the M3N nut. No need to pull it, we will use the screw. Place the remaining M3X20 screw from the other side and tighten it, but carefully, or you will damage the fan's casing. Guide the cable according to the picture in the channel. Bend it slightly towards the extruder. Don't stretch the cable. For following steps, please prepare: PINDA sensor. Insert PINDA sensor into the hole. Exact position doesn't matter, we will adjust it later. Tighten the M3X10 screw, but just slightly. Create a loop on the cable from the sensor. Push the cable in the channel together with the fan cable. For the following steps, please prepare: chip ties. Insert the chip ties in the x-carriage like in the picture. Lower the x-axis at about 1/3 from the top. Turn the printer like in the picture with x-axis motors and short extrusions facing towards you. Align the bearings similarly to the picture. The exact position of the lower bearings doesn't matter for now. Place the extruder on the bearings. The top couple must fit perfectly. Make sure the x-carriage is facing towards you. We will adjust the lower bearing later on. Tighten and cut the chip ties. Place the cables on the PINDA sensor side over the lower smooth rod and push them back in the channel. Place the cables on the hot end fan side over the lower smooth rod and push them back in the channel. Align the bearings so it fits nicely in the x-carriage. For the following steps, please prepare: x-axis belt. Insert the flat part of the x-axis belt into the x-carriage as in the picture. Guide the x-axis belt through the x-end idler around the X2GH bearing with the housing and back. Continue with belt through the x-carriage. Guide the x-axis belt through the x-end motor around the GT2 16 pulley and back. Before you continue to guide the belt through the x-axis, please release two M3 screws and the x-end. Rotate the x-axis motor as indicated towards the frame. Insert the flat part of the X-GT2 belt into the x-carriage as in the second picture. Using right hand, rotate the motor to its original position and hold it. Using 2 fingers on your left hand, push the belt together. Very small force should be needed for bending the belt, but the belt shouldn't be bent by its own weight before being pressed with your fingers. It must be straight. Depending on the belt being under or overstretched, adjust the amount of the belt in the x-carriage. When done, rotate the motor to its original position and tighten the M3 screw again. Both top and bottom part of the belt should be parallel. To adjust the belt position, release the screws on the pulley and move it slightly until you reach the best position. Tighten both screws on the pulley. Measure the part, which must be trimmed, and gently take the end of the belt away from the x-carriage, but make sure at least 3 to 4 teeth are still in the x-carriage, as you don't want to lose the tension. If possible, make a mark where to put the belt. Ensure again your mark is in the correct position and the belt is still stretched. Using pliers, cut the belt and push it inside x-carriage. Use screwdriver or Allen key if needed. First, slightly release the screws holding the motor, otherwise the upper tensioner won't work. Using Allen key, start tightening the M3X80 screws inside the X-end motor, but after each turn or 2, check the tension in the belt. For the optimal performance, the belt must be a bit harder to press with your fingers. Move the extruder all the way to the X-end idler and try the belt tension in the middle of the X-axis. When you achieve optimal tension, please tighten the screws again. For following steps, please prepare. Black nylon filament 50 cm. Using the pliers, cut one end of the filament to create a tip. Check the tip is similar to the third picture. Locate the hole for nylon filament. Using the smallest Allen key, ensure there is no obstacles inside. Using the pliers, insert and twist the nylon filament in the slot. Hold the extruder with your other hand. To check if the filament is seated properly, gently pull it with your hand. The x-axis should bend a little, but the filament must remain in the slot. If you have any issues, try to adjust the tip on the filament. For following steps, please prepare X-carriage back, cable holder, M3X40 screw, M3N nut. Prepare the M3X40 screw and cable holder from the previous step. Drive the screw all the way through the printed part. Take the M3N nut and place it in the printed part. Rotate the X-carriage back and tighten it together with the cable holder. Check the U-shaped slot is aligned properly on both parts. Push the cable from the extruder to the X-carriage back. Start with IR sensor cable, then the extruder motor and hot end fan. Next, add the print fan and PINDA sensor cables. Carefully insert the nylon filament and then slide the x-carriage back towards the x-axis. For this step, please prepare M3 extend screws. Use all 4 screws and tighten the x-carriage back. For following steps, please prepare zip ties, textile sleeve. Open one end of the textile sleeve and slide into the cable bundle leading from the extruder. Don't forget to include the black nylon filament inserted earlier. Leave cables from the hot end out for now. Length of the first wrap should be slightly longer than the cable holder part. About 5 cm is enough. Gently twist the sleeve to make it smaller and tighten around the cables. Orient the sleeve seam downwards, then slide the sleeve towards the extruder. Use 2 zip ties and push them through the upper slot on the cable holder. Before tightening the zip ties, add the cables from the hot end. Use the channel in the printed part to arrange them properly. Once the hot end cables are included, tighten the zip ties and cut remaining parts. Open the textile sleeve and insert the cables from the hot end. Compare the look of the cable management with the last picture. It's Haribo time! Take 3 zip ties and insert them in the lower row of the holes in the cable holder. Twist the sleeve again and tighten the zip ties.